I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the issue is 2020.
We're not going to win this election by just talking about what we're against. We need to start talking about what we're for.
Senator Cory Booker, the latest top-tier presidential candidate, to make an extended case with us in an exclusive one-on-one interview. Plus, the issue is homelessness, and the new headcount shows a staggering rise that neither money nor compassion seems to be able to quell. Congresswoman Katie Hill standing by to answer if the new numbers reflect a failure of liberalism. That and more with this week's panel. Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks, Republican strategist John Thomas, and gay rights activist Carson Jones. Plus,
people need to pick a country that they're fighting for, and I'm hoping that you'll choose America.
actress Patricia Arquette has made her choice, what she's lobbying the Senate for. The Issue Is starts right now. And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, Cory Booker had one of his first major breakout moments of the campaign with a rousing speech at the California Democratic Convention. Moments later, we spoke backstage one-on-one in San Francisco with the former Stanford tight end, Rhodes Scholar, Newark mayor, and current New Jersey senator. Senator Cory Booker, welcome to The Issue Is.
Elex, it's really good to be on.
All right, so welcome back to California. I know you went to Stanford. Your mom went to USC. I went to USC as well, so fight on to you.
I scored a touchdown against you guys, and so I'm going to flex a little bit here as a Stanford tight end.
And your finger shows some of the.
I've got some pretty messed up hands from days of football and basketball.
That shows you're a good player.
Yeah.
So talk to us about why you, because that's the big basic question for most voters. There's so many options. Why you?
Well, it's two things. I have a unique resume in this election. I ran towards the toughest problems in our country. I left Yale Law School, moved to the inner city of Newark, New Jersey, where I still live, joined myself with others in a city that had a reputation for decay and corruption and crime, and we turned it around. We, very important, we brought together new coalitions to create transformative results. I was the chief executive, who then went to Washington and was told what we couldn't do there. But we passed major bipartisan legislation. In fact, the only major bipartisan bill to pass under this president was the one I led from the Democratic Senate side with Dick Durbin for criminal justice reform. So that's a unique resume, somebody who was a chief executive and somebody who's gotten things done in Washington, but that's the first point. The second point is, I'm also the guy that says, hey, we're not going to win this election by just talking about what we're against. We need to start talking about what we're for. And Democrats, this is a moment where we have to be really a moral voice in this moral moment that is not about more tribalism and us against them politics or zero-sum game, fear-based politics. We need to change the culture of our country from tribalism back to the beloved community to pull this country together to deal with issues of injustice. And that's the theme of my campaign. If you want somebody, when they go low, we go lower, you can pick another candidate. If you want somebody who wants to fight fire with fires, I ran a fire department in Newark, not a good strategy, but hey, there are other people that can fit that bill. I want to call us to the best of who we are, not the worst, and that will beat Donald Trump because he wants us to fight him in the gutter on his turf, on his terms. This is a moment we got to call us to a higher level and a higher fight.
We had Kim Kardashian on the show recently, and she said nice things about your work on criminal justice reform.
I'm so happy to hear that, yes. I never got a compliment from Kim Kardashian before, and I must be making it now.
Let's talk, though, about California itself.
Yes.
A big state, a complicated state. You're going up against a vice president who is, well known by everybody, the senator who's a friend of yours, who's endorsed by almost everybody here. How do you pull it off here, and how important is California to the overall strategy?
Well, again, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for California. That's how important it was. My grandfather and grandmother, they got jobs out here, worked on assembly lines, worked for California government. So I'm invested in this state heavily, and we're going to take on this state. And a lot of that's going to be the momentum we're going to build. We're looking forward to peaking late, like Obama, who upset, or Kerry, who upset. They were polling way behind at this point in an election. We're going to win in Iowa. We're going to win in New Hampshire. Come through South Carolina and Nevada with a lot of momentum coming into California. So California's going to have a lot of time to learn more about me, about my vision, about my platforms, my ability to win retail states, because I'm a retail guy. But more importantly, I think that this long campaign, Californians will have a front row view of who best can beat Donald Trump and bring our country to a higher level.
So our show's called The Issue Is, so let's talk about some issues, right?
Yes.
And I know one that you're so passionate about is the issue of gun control. Senator Harris here and Congressman O'Rourke recently said that we should have an executive action and it should be an assault weapons ban by executive action. Do you agree with that? And do you think that's even constitutional to do something like that?
Well, folks should know, and I hope they'll go to CoryBooker.com. We have a far bigger and bolder agenda that has about 20 different points to it that are evidence-based things that work, that include an assault weapon ban, that include things like licensing for guns like Connecticut did that dropped their homicide rates 40%, suicide rates 15%. It involves investing in communities because there's models that when you see this as a public health issue like Oakland did, you can drive down gun violence by investing in severely impacted communities. So to me it's about a larger, bolder vision that's not letting the corporate gun lobby define this debate by small ambitions and small goals.
But can a president do that on his own, or does Congress need to be involved with that? Because Republicans have shown no willingness to do that.
Well, first of all, I think the right leader, like we saw in the civil rights movement, remember, Congress wouldn't pass civil rights laws. Strom Thurmond has a record for the longest filibuster in the Senate stopping civil rights legislation, but we overcame that by having leaders that inspired us to action. And so I'm not taking anything. I believe we can bring a fight to this issue like that's never been seen before with the right leader. I live in an inner city, low-income neighborhood where we see shrines to dead children on the streets. I have literally sat at a child's side trying to stop them from bleeding to death after a gun violence. This is an issue for a black man in America where we're 6% of the nation's population but make up over 50% of the homicide victims. I'm sorry, enough is enough. We will win this battle. If I'm your president, I'm going to bring a fight with you to this battle like it's never been seen before as a country, and we will find a way to get it done like we did in movements past.
Another issue that had been a complete logjam in Congress is that of immigration, which is so important here in California. What's the winning formula there? How do you get Republicans to sign off on immigration reform there? Is there actually a place for bipartisan compromise?
Well, there is. We saw it right before I came to the Senate. They did a bipartisan immigration reform bill that passed the Senate that would have literally taken $1 trillion off of our deficit, massive increases in revenue for our city, pulled people out of shadows, given people pathways to citizenship. So it can be done. In recent history, we did it, but this is what we've allowed. We've allowed demagoguery, fear-mongering to corrupt our politics. We have a president that is literally engaging in the worst kind of moral vandalism and trying to use and pit Americans against Americans. So the cure to this is waking up Americans, more Americans, joining in the understanding that we are a great nation, not despite immigration, but because of immigration. And if we're going to compete globally, we need to stop kicking Stanford kids who come in to the best education on the planet Earth, which a lot of it exists here in California, and then when the student visa's up, we kick them out. Understanding that here in California, your agricultural industry relies on the hard work and dedication of immigration. I can go through the areas where we know we are dependent upon immigration. And so we need to get back to facts and what makes us a better and stronger society, and have a politics that heals this bigotry and xenophobia we're seeing and begins to help us get back to the bipartisan work we did before in the Senate and make sure we pass comprehensive immigration reform now.
Another industry that's so important to California is technology. Yes. Some have criticized you for being too close to Silicon Valley, calling you Silicon Valley senator. What do you make of that? And what do you make of like Senator Warren suggesting that we should break up big tech?
Well, two things. If you went to Stanford in the early 90s, you kind of know people that are in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Some of my friends started some of the companies we know. So I'm not going to deny my friendships with people, but I will say this. If you want to talk about a senator that is about holding people accountable and that has been fighting to revive our antitrust laws and that sees Silicon Valley both for the opportunity that they are, but on things like data security, privacy, foreign attacks, these are platforms that are being used for some things that are unacceptable, and we need to have regulation, and we need to have a president that's committed to using antitrust laws because we've seen too much corporate consolidation in pharma and the agricultural industry and more. So, I got into politics to represent low-income communities. I'm the only person in the United States Senate that lives in a community below poverty line. I'm going to fight for the interests of those people who have been overlooked, looked down upon, and left aside. And I'm going to make sure that for corporations, which have been in so many ways since Citizens United perverting our politics with an obscene amount of cash. That's why my whole campaign is saying we're not taking corporate PAC money, we're not taking federal lobbyist money, not taking big pharma money, not taking oil company money. We're going to fight to make sure that we hold companies accountable. I don't care who's leading them.
But is Facebook too big? I mean, Chris Hughes has suggested that Facebook co-founder. Is it too big?
And I think that Chris Hughes and so many others are right to say that here's a company that controls, in fact, there's a couple companies that control overwhelmingly the majority of online ads. We should have a Justice Department that is looking into those things and using our laws to hold them accountable. But I'll tell you this, I don't want to be one of those presidents that just says, picks on companies individually. We should have processes that enforce antitrust laws, that enforce the laws that stop oligarchies from undermining our system. And I'm going to be a president from my DOJ to my FTC that actually fights the right way to hold pharma, tech, oil companies, to hold these companies accountable.
You've been out on the road for some time now, doing a lot of town halls, talking to a lot of people and learning from people.
Yes.
What do you think is the most surprising or important lesson you've learned from voters out on the road that you didn't know before you started this process?
You know, I think the best lesson that I say all the time and voters say all the time is enough of the days where we're going to wait for a president to save us. We've seen this before. What we need right now is Americans to understand that we need us, each other. That if we sleep on our democracy, bad things happen. And we need a higher level of engagement in this political process that we have. And if that's the case, we're not going to just win the White House back, but we're going to win Senate seats and state legislatures back. And we're going to stop gerrymandering and stop the corruption of money in our politics. We're going to be able to do big things because we as communities got involved again in politics. California showed that in 2018. You won multiple House seats that were considered Republican seats. You took back, hell, we've got now Nancy Pelosi is the head of the first ever woman elected Speaker of the House, is re-elected because of the engagement of people. It wasn't done by a leader. So this has got to be a revival of our democracy to stop all the anti-democratic things that are happening in our country.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about you?
Besides the fact people don't realize I once had an amazing afro. No, look, I just think that we're finding out when people get to know who I am, or for people who know me, our approval rates are way off the charts. And the battle for me is just to get people, take the time to get to know me. Learn about my history, go and watch Netflix, that Oscar-nominated documentary, Street Fight, done about my first election. Go and look at what I did to turn a city around. What have I done in Congress? Who I've been standing up for. So I'm just looking forward to getting people a chance to get to know me. Remember, rarely have we had a Democratic nominee win who's polling ahead this far out. Usually it's people that over time people get to know and learn about, and then they end up upsetting in Iowa. That's our pathway to the presidency, and I'm hoping people take the time to learn about my history, learn about my past, because that's the best prologue for what you can do. I'm the guy in this race who didn't take an easy way into politics. I ran at the toughest problems we have in America, created new coalitions to produce incredible results.
Yeah, of course, that was Barack Obama's path. All right, so we do something on our show called Personal Issues, where we have a little bit of fun, where we get to know you a little bit. So we're going to ask some of those questions, okay?
Please.
So here we go. Favorite comedian?
Wow, Richard Pryor. I grew up listening to his records. My mom and dad, I used to have to sneak in to listen so they didn't hear me listening to that language.
Favorite road snack?
Road snack.
Yeah, because you're on the rood all the time.
Listen, when I'm trying to be healthy, it's probably carrot sticks. When I'm not, it's probably like kettle corn popcorn.
Favorite Star Wars character?
I love the Jedi Knights, man. So I'm going to say definitely Luke Skywalker.
Favorite actor or actress?
Wow, Rosario Dawson, my girlfriend.
Yeah. That was an easy one. Favorite president of all time?
I would have to say FDR.
First concert?
Lena Horne, who is just amazing. But I still remember as a kid going to see The Wiz, which isn't really a concert, it's a musical, but that music literally so affected me as a kid.
And finally, who's your role model?
My mom. She is Wonder Woman. The older I get, the more in awe I have of her. A successful executive for IBM, but she never stopped serving. She led nonprofits. Even when she was in retirement, she led a homeless organization. She was involved in the civil rights movement, helped to organize a march on Washington. She was just, for me, she is my role model, and it's just, I'm honored to have been raised by two great parents, but this powerful black woman so affected me. And she has this saying that embarrasses me on the campaign trail all the time. She says, behind every successful child is an astonished parent. and my prayer is that I can continue to astonish my mother with what her love has helped me to spread that love to the world.
Well, as a mama's boy, I can appreciate that.
Thank you.
Shout out to her.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching The Issue Is. And we'd like to play music on the show. You can't hear right now. We're playing some Lovely Day Bill Withers, one of my mom's favorite songs.
Is it really?
Yes, we love that that's your song.
That's great.
Thank you
If
very
I
much.
become president, can I get a commitment from you?
Yes.
Will you shave your head in solidarity? Is that a commitment?
On camera.
On camera. Is that a yes?
Yes. Okay.
All right.
As long as I get an interview in the Oval Office.
You will.
Yeah.
You will. That's the deal.
Okay. Well, the election is 18 months away, but our technical director, David Arvizu, went ahead and did a photo of what I just might look like in January 2021, and let's just say it looks better on him. Short break. We'll be right back with our panel of pundits. Anna, John, and Carson have more than a few things to say. Thankfully, they all have their hair. But first, Congresswoman Katie Hill offers her plan to solve homelessness. Stay with us.
From Southern California to the Bay Area, you're watching The Issue Is.
This week, the annual head count of those who are unsheltered was released in the city of Los Angeles. The number of homeless is up 16%, 12% in LA County. In Orange County, an astonishing 43% rise. Ventura County up 28%. Joining us now from Washington is Congresswoman Katie Hill. Before she was in Congress, she was the executive director of People Assisting the Homeless, PATH, a statewide nonprofit working to end homelessness. Congresswoman, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Thanks so much for having me, Alex.
So what is your reaction to the latest numbers?
My reaction is that this isn't too much of a surprise, to be honest with you. And I think about it in the same way that I think about climate change and wildfires. You know, we have to deal with the problem that we're facing right now, which is people, tens of thousands of people who are sleeping on the streets. But we also have to address the systemic factors that are causing homelessness in the first place. Yes, the programs that we've put into place are working. We're housing more people than we ever have before. But we have to do more, and part of that needs to be a commitment coming from our federal government.
Well, right now, the state of California is led by Democrats. The city of Los Angeles is led by Democrats. LA County is led by Democrats, and yet this problem continues to get worse. Is this a failure of liberalism? Is it a failure of democratic politics that this keeps getting worse?
No, not at all. This is finally, now that we have this leadership in place, we have people who are willing to take on the problem. And I have to give so much credit to our political leaders right now in the city and county of Los Angeles who have taken this on. It takes a lot of courage. We knew from the very beginning that taking on the issue of homelessness, no matter what you do, it doesn't matter how much money you put into it, you will not solve homelessness in a short period of time. You will not solve homelessness in the period of any political term.
So as we mentioned, before you were in Congress, you were dealing with homelessness on the ground. What was the most important lesson you learned from that experience that you think other people may not know when it comes to the issue of homelessness?
You hear this myth a lot that people want to be homeless, and that's simply not true. Some folks do. No, they don't. That you will hear that because they might be pushing back to resistance to services because they've had such a bad experience in the past, or they're dealing with addiction or mental health issues. The thing that I try to equate this to is that nobody in a stable state of mind is going to willfully choose to live on the streets. That's just not how it works.
All right, last question, because I'm running out of time. In 20, 30 seconds, the most important thing that we need to do going forward on homelessness.
The most important thing we need to do is A, stay the course with the local investments, and B, really put the pressure on our federal officials to do their part at the national level.
All right, Congresswoman Katie Hill, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll talk homelessness and more with our panel, Anna, John, Carson. As we go to break, Lana Del Rey sounding sublime as we get ready for summertime. What do you make of California's relevance to the presidential race, and what's your message to all the candidates as they come to California?
Well, it's not just about the ATM now, it's about policy, it's about values.
This week, California Governor Gavin Newsom telling me about California's importance to the presidential race by moving up its primary. Here to talk about that and more is our panel. Anna Kasparian is back. She's a host and executive producer of the Young Turks. Go to tytnetwork.com to watch. Fun fact, Anna is married to baseball player, model, and actor Christian Lopez. Fellow Young Turk Cenk Uygur officiated the wedding. John Thomas is a Republican political strategist, KFI commentator, host of the Thomas Guide Show. His company, Thomas Partner Strategies, just opened up an office in Newport Beach. Congratulations as it gears up for 2020. Carson Jones, who is the first zookeeper / gay rights activist to appear on the TV show. Carson has worked with animals in Australia, Birmingham, and Denver. He found himself thrust into the national political conversation when his dad, Doug Jones, ran against and defeated the Judge Roy Moore for U.S. Senator from Alabama. He's in town for the premiere of a powerful new documentary titled 5B, which tells the story of America's first hospital ward for AIDS patient. That premieres in theaters on June 14th. Welcome to you all. Good to have you here.
Great to be here.
So let's start by talking about the 2020 race. We talked to Cory Booker. What was your take on that?
Cory Booker is going to have a difficult time standing out from the rest of the candidates, especially at a time when the issue of income inequity and climate change is really at the forefront of what Democratic voters want to focus on. His pet issue seems to be gun control, which is important. I'm not trying to take that away. But I think when you're differentiating Cory Booker with other Democratic candidates, that issue might not really, rise to the top of the priorities.
Although it certainly got a great reaction at the California convention. Where do you see the race right now, John?
Cory has a good chunk of work to do. I think the race right now really is Biden is at his peak. I think he's only going to fall. The question is, how fast does he fall? I don't see him getting the nomination. I think Sanders and Warren I'm watching very closely because they're talented candidates. They have base of support. Booker is going all in on Iowa with a firewall in South Carolina. Booker's challenge is he doesn't score big points with big speeches. He's not a great television politician, but he's a good retail politician. So if he can win one room at a time and pull an upset in Iowa, he could get in this, but that's a really tough thing to do.
Carson, we know your dad has endorsed Joe Biden. You haven't endorsed anybody yet. It's a lot of candidates out there. Where do you see the race?
Yeah, there's a lot of candidates, and I think that I'm excited to see debates happen and a lively discussion about where we are on each of these issues and what each of these candidates are gonna do for people in America. We really need to hear from them about what their specific plans are so that we can figure out who the strongest candidate moving forward is.
All right, so around the table,
Approach, I must say.
Who do you think is the strongest candidate? Who would be the toughest opponent for President Trump?
I'm undecided on that. I think it's way too early. We need to wait and see in the first debate.
I would probably say Kamala Harris, only because I think she animates the traditional Democratic coalition, just with her identity.
What do you think?
I think it's way too early. There's a long time until March or all those times when the primaries are going to happen.
Well, one thing it's not too early to do is to try to fix homelessness in this state because it continues to be a horrible problem. This week, the news even worse. Katie Hill saying that this is proof, though, that Democratic policies are working on homelessness. What do you make of that, John?
I took a lot of gall for her to say what she said on your interview. Proof that it's working when millions and millions of dollars are being spent and homelessness is skyrocketing in LA County, 16% or 14%? That is disastrous. The issue is it's not just housing. You have to look at disastrous liberal policies in this state that cost of housing, and it's not just that, it's cost of living, gas taxes, sales taxes, all of that in the aggregate. There was an analysis done by the LA Times that said in order just to afford housing in LA County, the average person needs to earn $42 an hour. Well, that has to come down, and that means reduce regulatory burden, reduce taxes, but the sad part is I don't see that happening anytime soon.
So this is a topic that I care a lot about, and I've done a lot of extensive research because I'm tired of seeing my fellow Americans out on the streets. So what I found was that, there's this talking point that we keep hearing over and over again in California about how there's a lack of inventory. There's a lack of inventory. We need to loosen zoning regulations and build more apartments. But the reality is we are in a construction boom right now. Last year, we built hundreds of thousands of units, but the only issue is, and these are not liberal policies, it's the, the marriage of corporations and our politicians. And this is a virus that really impacts every party because we're having these developers come in, knock down affordable housing, and then build these luxury condos that people can't afford. And at the same time, we're allowing foreign investment into our housing market. And these are individuals who have no interest in actually living here. They're, in some cases, laundering money in U.S. property, and they're artificially inflating the value of property here in the U.S.
We have a bunch of empty condos in downtown Los Angeles
That's
right now because of that. So that problem continues. Meanwhile, the reason to celebrate this weekend, though, Gay Pride. It's Gay Pride Month, and it's being celebrated in West Hollywood this weekend. What does Gay Pride mean to you? I want to go around the table. Anna, we'll start with you.
For me, it means living your life authentically and being unafraid to be yourself.
I mean, the Republican in me thinks it's great to have liberty and freedom to choose. So it's great that, for a celebration. And I'm actually happy to see that I think this issue, by and large, is behind us. It's something you can't forget. But I think the country as a whole is moving past this, and both parties seem to be embracing the freedom to choose.
Carson.
I think that this month is a great opportunity to look back at history and see how far our community has come. I think it's a great opportunity to be visible for people who may be struggling with their sexuality or may need that community. And it's also a good opportunity to look forward at where the areas of concern still are and what we can all do together to kind of fix those.
And what do you think is the most important thing to do going forward?
I think the beginning of it is looking at discrimination laws throughout the state or throughout the country. So especially on things like the Equality Act, as you move across the country, discrimination laws are completely different from state to state. So things like that can be really helpful to make sure that we are giving people the support that they need.
Yeah, and you will be out this weekend showcasing some of that support as well.
Absolutely.
It's good to have all of you here. And speaking of pride, there isn't anyone more proud, perhaps, than Elton John, right? So we're going to listen to some music from Rocket Man. This is Taron Egerton singing. And speaking of good listens, check out a special podcast with Carson Jones about his very unique life story. In fact, you can listen to all of our past shows in digital extras in podcast form. Just search for The Issue Is wherever you stream. Up next, Patricia Arquette is here. But first, let's rock out a little. Let's see. Any good moves you've got?
No.
Don't have the moves.
No moves? Oh my God. We need to bring Gloria Allred back on Saturday. Come on.
Okay, if you dance, I'll dance.
Oh my God.
He did a great job with both of them, by the way.
Thanks for saying that. I never thought I'd hear you say that.
Patricia Arquette won the Oscar for that role in Boyhood. She won the Emmy and a Screen Actors Guild as well. But beyond her acting, it's her activism for women's rights that she may be proudest of.
The truth is, they just don't want us to have equal rights.
We caught up with Patricia Arquette at the Pacific Design Center in West Hollywood, where the Feminist Majority Foundation held its Global Rights Awards.
Women are rising up by the millions.
Arquette recently testified before the U.S. Senate, pushing for the Equal Rights Amendment.
It's really critical that women are enshrined in the Constitution. Hey, guys.
The Oscar and Emmy Award-winning actress is one of several celebrities pushing for the ERA to finally be ratified after multiple tries over decades.
Their fear is that if they do that, it will strengthen abortion rights. But here's my argument. You didn't want to put us in the Constitution intentionally before there was any conversation about abortion rights.
Arquette is horrified by several states passing laws that restrict abortion rights.
What do you think people should do as a reaction to what's happening on abortion rights?
Well, I think you need to vote these people out of office.
So would Arquette ever run herself? She's asked her family.
They were not very excited about that idea. They were like, really? And the truth is, I feel like I can be very vocal right now, where I think I would have to be a little more strategic about things that I would say.
Arquette's bottom line to all voters, it's time to get involved.
These are very important times, and people need to pick a country that they're fighting for, and I'm hoping that you'll choose America.
Well, there's really only one song that makes sense after that segment, right? Our thanks to Patricia Arquette, Katie Hill, Anna Kasparian, John Thomas, Carson Jones, and Senator Cory Booker on this crowded show. I'm Elex Michaelson. We'll be back next week with more of The Issue Is.